Hey guys, it's time for another Word for Wednesday. I hope you had a great 4th of July weekend. I know our family sure did. One of the things I did this weekend, probably along with millions of others around the country, was to watch Hamilton on the Disney Channel. It was amazing, and afterwards I watched the interview with Lin-Manuel Miranda, who wrote Hamilton, and he talked about his inspiration that he drew from Ron Chernow's book on Alexander Hamilton, which I have been reading. I've just finished Ron Chernow's biography on Washington, which is awesome. Those two books, you get some amazing insight into the beginning of our country. And then another great one, if you're just looking for historical books to read, is a book called The Island at the Center of the World, about the Manhattan colony that was founded by the Dutch West India Company. But I digress. Hamilton, a great play, not for everybody, definitely not for the whole family. It's got some adult words in there. But as I was watching, one of the things that Lin-Manuel Miranda said was that he wanted to make it a story about immigrants, because Alexander Hamilton was an immigrant to the United States. He was born in the West Indies. When he was a very young man, his father left the family, his mother died. He was raised by a cousin who ended up committing suicide. He was just all alone. A massive hurricane hit the island where he lived, and when he was about 16, he wrote about it, and his pastor, who he was friends with, saw what he wrote and asked him if he could publish it. Initially, Hamilton said no, but then he agreed, and people were just so moved by what Alexander Hamilton wrote that they took up a collection to send him to New York to go to school, to get his education. So he took a boat to Boston, came down to New York, and that's where the story of the musical Hamilton picks up. It is a lot of fun. In fact, 40 minutes in, there's a song, I think it's called Rewind. Amazing. Wow. But it got me thinking about this idea of being immigrants. Most of us who live in this country, our families immigrated here from somewhere else. Unless you are you have American Indian heritage, it is most likely that your family originally was from somewhere else. And that got me thinking about a verse, actually a number of verses in 2 Corinthians chapter 5. I want to read this for you. It says in 2 Corinthians 5, starting in verse 16, it says, "So from now on, we regard no one from a worldly point of view. Though once we regarded Christ in this way, we do so no longer. Therefore, if anyone is in Christ, he and she is a new creation. The old is gone, the new is here. And all this is from God, who reconciled the world to himself through Christ and gave us, you and I, the ministry of reconciliation. That God was reconciling the world to himself in Christ, not counting people's sins against them. And he has committed to us, to you and I, this message of reconciliation." I love this. "We are therefore Christ's ambassadors, as though God were making his appeal through us. We implore you on Christ's behalf, be reconciled to God." Another spot in the New Testament, Paul says that our citizenship is in heaven. We are not of this world. We are strangers, Peter says. We are aliens. We are not of this world. That's, if you're an old Petra fan, you remember that song. And that's an amazing truth to remember, that you and I, ultimately, our citizenship isn't of the country that you were born in or the country that you live in. Ultimately, our citizenship is a heavenly citizenship. And our allegiance should primarily be to that heavenly citizenship. And I tell you, I love the 4th of July. We had a blast at our house. We had our whole family here. We grilled. We spent the day blowing stuff up. We blew a watermelon up, and it literally disappeared from the face of the earth. There were not even molecules of watermelon left. They were instantly vaporized. It was like a nuclear reaction. It was amazing. We had a lot of fun. And I love my country. I love living in America. I love being an American. I love the freedoms that it affords me. But we have to remember, especially as Americans and especially as American Christians, sometimes we muddle our American citizenship and the beautiful freedoms that we have and rights that we have as American citizens. We muddle that with our faith and with our heavenly citizenship. We've always got to remember that the most important citizenship that we have is our heavenly citizenship. Our citizenship as American citizens, or if you're watching in another country, whatever country you're watching in, whatever country you're a citizen of, that is a distant second. And our rights as Americans, and we as Americans love talking about our freedoms and our rights. Our rights and freedoms as Americans are always second to our responsibilities as followers of Jesus Christ. And what are those responsibilities? To love God by obeying His commandments and to love others as we would love ourselves. And I'll tell you, we are going to be pushed more and more to think in binary ways about government, about issues. And as Christians, we need to really be, as Jesus said, wise as serpents, but as gentle as doves. We've got to navigate the world we live in and not be pressed into binary decisions. You know, I'm thankful for our Second Amendment rights. But my right to bear arms takes a distant back seat to my responsibility to love my neighbor as myself. My feelings about whether a person should or shouldn't kneel when the flag is raised during the national anthem. Those things that I think about that really are a distant second to my responsibility as a believer to be an ambassador of God from my world to this world, because God is making an appeal to this world through me and through you. And so I would just say to you, especially as we think about this last weekend and the 4th of July, and as we get moved toward this fall and election time when it's just, I think, going to get crazier and crazier, remember that this world, while it's where you live, it is not your home. And I would encourage you to press in to your responsibilities as a believer in Jesus Christ, to share the love of Christ, to walk with Christ, to love God by obeying His commandments, and to be a grace giver, a love giver, a truth giver, a peace giver, a hope giver to everyone you meet. Now, before I go, I want to remind you that this Sunday evening, we're doing what we're calling a drive-in celebration. I invite everybody to our south parking lot. That's the big one on the side of the church with the gym. Have you pull in, stay in your cars. I guess you could get out and tailgate if you wanted to, but what we're going to do is the audio for the celebration we're going to have is going to go into your FM radio. The McCords have let us borrow their FM transmitter that they use at Christmas time at their house. And so in everybody's radio, you'll be able to hear what's going on. We can remain socially distant. You won't have to wear a mask, all that kind of stuff. But we're just going to have a celebration where we remember the great history of God in our church and what God has done through CCF. We'll have some people share their stories, and we'll celebrate. We're going to look to get maybe some ice cream that we can pass out to everybody in their cars and enjoy that. But we're going to take about 30 minutes. We're going to start at 7 o'clock on Sunday night. We'll be done by 7:30, 7:45, and it's going to be a great, great time. So join us this Sunday. Mark your calendars, 7 o'clock on July the 12th. I hope that you are doing well. I pray that God is working in your life. And remember, you and I are ambassadors for Christ. Our citizenship is in heaven, and we are ambassadors for the King of Love to this place that we live now. I love you guys. Have a great week. Bye-bye.